What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you my first place sneak peek profile for Maliss. Now, at the sneak peek event this weekend, we did a sealed event and then we did a constructed event where the new cards from Supreme Darkness was legal, and I was able to win the event with Maliss. Now, this is obviously updated with the new combo involving the Yugioh Q, which put in a lot of work for the deck. There's a couple of other cards in the main deck that also put in a lot of work in the matchups that I faced. Round 1 was against Yugioh, round 2 was against Yugioh, and then round 3 and 4 was back-to-back voice versus voice. Both very different strategies, both very different approaches to the game, and technically both really tough to face. I think voice versus voice is going to be one of them underdog decks for the upcoming format, just because it doesn't worry about most of the Molchummy cards. It can work its way into utilising cards like the Lancia, and it doesn't really need to run headfirst into many of the interruptions that Yugiohs and of course Maliss have to offer. So it does make it a very tricky matchup. I'm also going to show you my side deck that I utilised at the end of the video as well, so you have a full understanding of how it works. I'll also show you the combo that involves the new Yugioh Q, which just kind of shows you how you can utilise this with the Nightmare Griffin, and that's why a lot of people are moving from Terahertz to the Yugioh Q and of course the Nightmare Griffin. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. Diving head first into the profile, we're going to start off with the Maliss cards themselves. This is going to be pretty straightforward and standard. There's only one change that I personally try to play a little bit differently than most, but I'll explain that as we go. So you start off with triple Maliss White Rabbit. I'm actually starting to prefer this a little bit more than Dormouse. Don't get me wrong, Dormouse is still the better one, but I actually don't have an issue normal summoning this just because it's an on normal summon or special effect, and then you get the trap card. So like my route of combo, I'm actually a little bit more comfortable going down this route than I am with the Dormouse, but they're both just as crazily good as the other. So of course, triple Dormouse. And then one thing that I've seen a lot of Maliss players is playing, which I still don't fully understand myself yet, so it might be a fault on my side, is that a lot of them are playing free Chessy Cat. For me, I've been testing it at 2 and I really didn't like it, so I've gone back to just playing 1 of it. Now, I know it's a little bit risky, and I understand the whole idea that is that if you see a Maliss monster in the hand, you can obviously start linking off and extend your plays and banish it from the graveyard and everything else. But honestly, I didn't really see the need of having it at 3. I tried playing it at 2, and every time I saw it, like I would see only the Chessy Cat in my hand, and I was like, this on its own doesn't really do a lot, and I need it to be backed up with other stuff. Whereas a Dormouse on its own gets me going, and so does the White Rabbit, because they get the combos moving for me. Now, I might be wrong in this, and it might be playing 3 going forward is the better option, but the deck is quite kind of jam-packed as it is, just through choices on my own, and it kind of worked out for me. All of the cards in here, there's bar like 1 or 2 cards that I'm like, all right, well, if I take it out, I'm probably going to pay the price for it. But for now, I'm actually quite happy with this ratio. I did take out Silent Mining, which is the one gamble of it. But the idea is that I wasn't really relying on the new Skipper card because I didn't actually put that in. I forgot to put that in. And I was going to play with Code of Soul, but I only ended up taking it out. And I didn't miss it throughout the entire day, which I was quite happy about. So the other ways you can get to your Maliss monsters is, of course, triple Underground and 1 Terraforming. So bar the Chessy Cat, you technically have like 10 ways to get to a Maliss starter, and that's before you kind of consider any of the other draw cards that you might have throughout your plays. The Maliss trap cards, pretty standard on this one, 1 MTP, 1 TB11 and 1 GWC. And then for the Sky Striker package, triple Engage, 1 Anchor and 1 Drone. There was only one time when I sided out the Anchor that I was like, oh, I would actually be quite helpful to have this card. But other than that, I would have been relatively happy just not having Anchor in the deck. Now, obviously, I'm still going to keep it in. I'm not saying take it out, but it was just a point where I was like, all right, I don't think that Anchor is as necessary as like everything else. I don't mind this engine. It's definitely something that I want to consider playing around with a little bit more, because this kind of 5-card slot is where you can start playing stuff like the Fiendsmiths. It's where you can go back to the Kashteras if you want to. I personally think this is better than the Kashteras. I'm not too sure on how I feel in comparison to the Fiendsmiths as of yet. And then for just your generic like support card, obviously still the 1 Dotscaper. If you do see it in your hand, it makes your combos a little bit more awkward, and that's where something like Silent Mining can come into play, because you could activate Silent Mining discarding the Dotscaper, and then you can start getting its ways of looping it back. But more times than not, you want it to stay in the deck. And then for the hand traps, I went with 1 Magnamoo and 2 Druid Swarm. Obviously, these all put their works in when they needed to, and they were sided out in matchups where they weren't going to be that effective for me. And then for the hand traps themselves, I played 3 Ash Blossom, 3 Imperm, triple Impulse. Like, I really like Impulse, so this is the one big thing that made me kind of want to play this version over the Kashtira version, is being able to utilize this card here. Obviously, if you would side in this out and you would side in Floros, that's something you need to keep in mind, or you make sure you don't use this and Floros, or if you use Floros to draw into it, and then you can use Impulse. Now, I was on free cross-out Designator. This is mainly just as another way to deal with Artifact Lancia because I would side one of them in. A lot of people don't like cross-out Designator. There was one time when it came up, which basically, it didn't really change the game, to be honest, but I went Book of Eclipse. My opponent went Ash Blossom. I went cross-out Designator. So it wasn't like absolutely necessary because I had a second Book of Eclipse, so I could have just held it back. It's just one of these precautionary measures I've kind of gone with just to kind of help me deal with certain hand traps. Like if my hand isn't that strong, but I have a cross-out Designator, and my opponent tries to activate stuff like Imperms or an Impulse or an Ash, which are the main kind of hand traps you're going to be looking for, then I have a way to stop it. And then when you're looking at Artifact Lancia, kind of my side deck is my counter to it, and that's where I'd probably still try and keep in cross-out, because if I see cross-out and my opponent thinks that they drop a Lancia, that's it, game over, being able to hit them with a cross-out can be quite damaging. I have no issues with some people taking it out. It's just a personal choice that I play in a lot of my competitive decks, just because it kind of catches a few people off guard. But if anything, you would take these out and you could very easily put in stuff like maybe Ghost Spells, but you've got to be careful of Impulse, and then maybe Nibiru's as well. The MVP of the entire deck that put in so much work for me was Book of Eclipse. Like, the fact that I main deck this really helped me against the Voiceless matchup. It also helped me against the Ryziel matchup. With the Voiceless matchup, it was more so that they kind of built their board, which is incredibly strong, but then I was able to activate Book of Eclipse to either stop them building prior to that, or I'd activate Book of Eclipse to and then chain Droplet, send in the Book of Eclipse to make sure the whole board went face down, and the benefit of that is their Ritual monsters only gain the attack, so being able to flip them face down just made it a little bit easier to deal with. And then the Ryziel matchup, my opponent finished their board on a Detonator, Duo Drive, and they were playing the Phoenix Engine, so they had the DDD High Wave King. And I was able to go, okay, cool, draw phase, Book of Eclipse, and then that shut off their entire board, especially with Cross as well. So that was very, very helpful. And then the last cards that I was playing is main decking 2 Triple Tactics Thrust and the 1 Gold Sark. Honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of main decking Triple Tactics Thrust, so again, that's something that I might want to change around with a little bit more, but this really comes into its own once you get into the side deck. Once you get into the side deck, the targets that Thrust can get you access to just makes things a little bit more consistent, gives you a bit more of a variety in the extra deck, and it's something that I might want to change around depending on the type of version I go for it. In the main deck, you still have great options because you've got Terraforming to get you to your field spell, you've got Gold Sark that can help you get to your combo, you've got Engage that can help you get into that backup version of the combo as well, and then going first, you've got direct access to Impulses and Imperms, so it does give you a bit to play around with. It really is kind of like a choice if you want to be going for this route or not. Moving on to the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we'll start off with, of course, the Maliss monsters. So for the Maliss monsters, you're just going to be playing one of each. So you've got Heart's Crypta, you've got your White Binder, and then, of course, you've got your Red Ransom. All pretty straightforward and simple on these. Heart's Crypta is insanely powerful boss monster when you banish it and then bring it back because it becomes 5k. And then the ability to quick effect return one of your banished Maliss cards to the deck to then banish one card on the field is really, really good. White Binder is your draw capabilities and like your DD Crow. Red Ransom searches out your field spell and then also banishes the Dotscaper from the deck, so it's like an extender. More times than not, your first one you're going to go to is Red Ransom, then you go White Binder, and then you work your way into Heart's Crypta. Then for the other Link monsters, we'll start from the lower links and work our ways up. So for the Link ones, of course, we've got the one Link Decoder still. The idea is that if I use this to go into White Binder, like you use Dotscaper going to Link Decoder, and it just means you've got that monster that's going to float around. Because if this is sent to the graveyard for Link material of a Cyverse Link monster with 23 or more attack, so Maliss, Firewall, even Access Code, you get to bring it back from the grave. Link Spider, if you get nibbed, you turn it into a Cyverse effect monster, and you can continue to combo from there. And then Linkuriboh. I made this a couple of times. It was one of the ones that actually, funny enough, in one of the Voice matchups, they sided in Lava Golem. But because I turned my Maliss monster into Linkuriboh, and I was like, you know what, just in case you have that Saki evenly matched, I don't know. It meant that they couldn't Lava Golem me, which was quite funny. Because I got rid of my only monster and didn't extend further. I was obviously under Lancia as well, which is why I couldn't go much further. This gets better if you do play the full Mud Skipper, but my issue with the full Mud Skipper is it's kind of like Cold as Soul. If you're not playing Signet Mining, you're not directly searching it, and then it's one of them ones, well, okay, if you hard open this, good for you, you can play it off. If you don't really need to rely on it. It's something I thought I might miss, but honestly I didn't. It might be something that I'll try out a little bit later on. Kagari, pretty standard on that one. And then for the Link 2s, you've got pretty much your power play Link 2s right now. You got your Hagar Lizard Dose with your Splash Mage. You could avoid using the Splash Mage, or I try to avoid using the Splash Mage until like the last possible moment, because the normal combo that I want to do is I want to go into the Nightmare Griffin into the Albia Q play, but there are some times when you need to use Splash Mage to go a different route. Then, of course, you've got your SP Little Knight and your IP Masquerena. So for those of you unfamiliar, the reason IP is now floating back into decks is because the Alba Q can bring it back from the grave. So what you do is you use the IP Masquerena to link off one of your monsters that you'll see in the combo, and then you can use Alba Q to bring it back so that it's ready to go again for your next turn, or your opponent's next turn. For the Link 4s, I'm playing the 1 Firewall Dragon. I still really like this card. Like, the bounce back can be quite useful. The Graveyard Recursion can be useful as well. And then summoning when one of a monster that it points to leaves is actually really good as well. So it puts in some decent amount of work. I still like it, but I wouldn't be opposed if people wanted to take it out. Your Aggressor, of course, is going to be Access Code Talker. Like, this card in this deck is insane. Being able to banish your Maliss Link monsters and then using the Link monsters' effect to summon themselves back is insane. You get to play with waters, like Kagari is the fire, water is the Haggard Lizardos, then you've got a Guaranteed Dark, and then if you do go down a Griffin route or, of course, a Firewall Dragon route, you also have the ability of utilising a light as well. And then the last two that we're playing is the Nightmare Griffin and the brand new Albia Q, the Lightless Shadow. So for those of you unfamiliar, the way that this works is you would use Nightmare Griffin. So you make Nightmare Griffin first, you use Nightmare Griffin as your link fodder to get into the Albia Q, so you use this as a link 1. Chances are what you're doing when you make this is you'll have either White Binder or you have Red Ransom on the field, and you'll have Nightmare Griffin made to the zone that Red Ransom points to. Then, of course, what you do, or even if you don't and you put this in the extra monster zone and you make a Red Ransom below it, is you use your Red Ransom as your link 3, your Nightmare Griffin as a link 1, you make the Albia Q. Albia Q will banish itself and discard a card from the hand to bring back the Nightmare Griffin in the middle zone, so it's not pointing anywhere. And then when this comes back in the end phase, it will then be pointing to Nightmare Griffin. It then leaves up a extra zone over here and an extra zone over here, so that when you're starting to bring back your Maliss cards, they can still activate their effects. And because this is in the center zone with nothing being able to point to it or point to itself, it negates all special summon monsters' effects unless they are linked. And it actually causes a lot of issues for your opponent, because what you do is you still have the destruction effect off the Alba, or you've got the ability to revive from the graveyard, and it basically means that you don't need to rely on the GWC as heavily in order to get to your White Binder. You can actually just bring back the White Binder off the back of the Albia Q and then do the exact same combo anyway, where you're going to be banishing your Red Ransom, your White Rabbit, and maybe even your Heart Scriptor. So that's it for the entire main deck and the extra. I'm now going to show you my side deck and kind of explain some of my siding patterns. So I was on triple Molchummy Floros. This is still the best Chummy in my opinion, even with the new one. Like the new one is one of the ones that's quite like Droll, quite like Bell. It's one of them hand traps that will float in and out of a format depending on what format we're looking for. Yes, of course, it can be quite damaging for the Maliss deck because obviously the Maliss will always want to be summoning from the Banish Zone. So that's one thing you'll need to worry about. But unless you're going to an environment where you know everyone's going to be on Maliss, you're not really going to be putting that in over the Floros. Like Floros will still hit the Maliss deck just as powerfully as a Meowis, so it's not the end all be all. Like this is the first one you go to, no doubt, and then it really comes down to Perulia or Molchummy, depending on the format of the environment you're going to. Triple D Shifter. Now I know there are some builds that play this in the main. It's a bit of a weird one. I think it really does come down to the environment. Because if it comes down to an environment where there's like one Maliss deck and then everyone else is on Ryzeal, you could probably main this and it would actually give you a nice advantage going first. Especially with the Fiendsmith engines floating around. But then every time I sided it in, when I sided it in against Voiceless Voice, I didn't really see it. And when I sided it in against Yugioh, I didn't see it. So it wasn't like a card that I felt I was massively missing. But it's one of the ones that I could definitely see the benefit it will give you if you can play it. You would just need to really work on and remember the combos under D-Shifter, as it does make your plays a little bit more awkward to do, but it still gives you that benefit of being able to build a board while shutting your opponent off for an entire turn. The only issue that I kind of saw was, if I'm using D-Shifter, I need to be able to make sure that I OTK. And one of the easiest ways to OTK with the Maliss strategy and with the Maliss deck would be stuff through like Access Code, the Albia Q, all of the cards like that want to be able to bring back from the grave. Funny enough, Albia Q can actually bring back the D-Shifter. The other degenerate thing about the Albia Q is in the mirror match, if you do get your Lancer into rotation, which you can do off of the back of Artifact Dagda if you wanted to, is you can use the Albia Q to just keep looping it around, which basically just, unless your opponent has a DD Crow, Bestial, or a Call by the Grave, they're just going to constantly keep getting Lancers, which is dirty. And then I was on triple Forbidden Droplet, like this put in work for me. There was times where I would put in Shifter and Droplet, more so in the Voiceless Voice matchup, because I was like, all right, well, I'm hoping I see one or the other and not both. If I see both, then obviously it gets a little bit trickier. But Droplet put in more work. Like, if I was to rank my extra deck on cards that would want to be going in higher than the rest, this would be one of those cards that would be at like the top that would definitely make it into the side. Triple Cosmic Cyclone, I never put these in, to be honest. I could see myself playing it at 2. The idea was just to deal with any random back row decks. It's not that effective against Maliss. Like, it can be in the end phase, but the chances are they've already built up the board they needed to anyway. It can be good against Yugioh to deal with Cross, but even then, once they've built a board up, just going Cosmic Cyclone on Cross might not be the end-all be-all. Like, you're better off with just Book of Eclipse and clearing the board off. The last 3 cards that I was playing is 1 Artifact Lancer, 1 Artifact Sanctum, and a D-Barrier. Now, before everyone loses their mind with the Artifact Lancer, I wasn't expecting there to be that many Maliss at my environment. If I did, I'd be definitely playing 3 Lancia, but I felt that the chances are most of the matchups would be there to counter the Maliss matchup and not actually be the Maliss matchup, which is why I went for the Lancia, the Sanctum, and the Barrier. Because when you take into account the Triple Tactics Frost will bridge into Barrier or Sanctum. There's a lot of times where, actually both times, against Yugioh, they Lanced me, I went, okay, cool, Frost, set D-Barrier. And against the Voiceless Voice, I went Lancia, I went, okay, cool, Frost, set D-Barrier. And in those particular type of matchups, less so against it made it awkward for the Yugioh player, which I was able to win off the back of that because I was able to kind of stop his link plays with everything that I was building up. And then I was able to D-Barrier, call Rituals, and they couldn't play, call XYZ, and they couldn't play. In the matchup for Voiceless Voice, obviously I flipped it, called Rituals, and then they really can't build their board, and that makes it awkward for them. I never sided in the Sanctum. I would side in Lancia when I knew my opponent would side in Lancia instead, just so that I had this as a counter to their own Lancia off the back of the Crossout Designator. Other than that, obviously, you probably wouldn't need to put it in. And then Sanctum would be one of the ones that if it was the Maliss matchup, I would still have 2 Frosts, 1 Sanctum, and the access to the Lancia if I needed it. So that was kind of my thought process behind that. So that's it for the entire profile. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset, show you the full board, which is great because I get to show you off the full mat of the Supreme Darkness mat. And then I'll show you the very basic combo that utilizes the Albula Q and also utilizes, like, just a very basic 1-card combo that utilizes the Albula Q and, of course, the Nightmare Griffin. So I'll be back in a second. So very simply, you're just going to be starting off with Dormouse. Now this is just going to be the basic line combo just to show you how it now deviates that we have access to the Albula Q. There aren't really any other new cards that we integrate in the way of the play, but the idea is just to kind of show you how you work your way around it. So you're going to normal summon down your Dormouse, you're going to use the effect to banish the White Rabbit from the deck, use White Rabbit's effect when it's banished to bring itself back to the board, and then its effect on summon to let you set the TB11. Pretty standard at this exact point. You're then going to link both of these together and you're going to go into your Haggard Lizardos. Use Haggard Lizardos' effect to banish the Dormouse, which is obviously the Maliss monster you haven't used the banish effect of as of yet. Use the effect, paying 300 life points to bring it back to the board. Then you're going to be linking these 2 together to get you into your Red Ransom. Red Ransom's effect will grab you the Maliss in Underground. So again, very standard of the type of route of play that we are working with right now. Now what you can do is you're going to activate the TB11, you're going to banish the Red Ransom, you're going to summon out the Chessie Cat from the deck, and then of course you'll be able to trigger the Red Ransom effect, paying 900 life points to bring it back to the board, and then use this effect to banish the Dotscaper. Dotscaper's effect comes back to the board. Now, normally what you'd do here is you'd put maybe Dotscaper, you might consider putting Dotscaper into your link decoder and stuff like that, but we're going to keep it very simple. We're just going to link these 2 together and you're going to go into IP Masquerena. Great success on that point. Now, keep in mind, we've got a lot to work with, so we're going to be using this as a link 1, this is a link 2, and we're going to work our way into the White Binder. Don't worry about the non-destruction effect for the IP Masquerena, you're not really going to need to worry about it so much. You're going to use White Binder's effect, you're going to want to banish at least 2 of your cards, and the 2 you're going to want to banish will be the Chessie Cat to be your extender, and you want to put the TB11 banish so that you've guaranteed to got 1 banish ready to go for Heart's Cryptor should you need to. You're now going to use Chessie Cat's effect. This will allow you to summon itself back to the board. And then you're going to use the effect of White Binder to set you your GWC. So that'll be set along the back row here. Now what you're going to do is you're going to link these 2 together. These 2 are going to get you into your Nightmare Griffin. Now at this exact moment in time, its effect will be active, and that means that unless a monster is unless a monster is linked, a special monster is linked, it can't use activate its effect. Now that effect of Griffin is not an activated effect. So basically what it means is even though nothing points to it and Griffin doesn't point to anything, they are still negated. So keep that in mind. That's very, very important. Then what you're going to do is you're going to activate the Maliss Underground, use the effect to banish your White Binder from the graveyard. This will then allow you to get your White Binder back to the board, and then you'll be able to put it here so we can make sure we draw off of the White Binder, so you're going to get 1 blank to your hand. Now this is important if you are top decking, but idea in mind, you'll still have 4 more cards in your hand, so you've basically just replenished your hand, so you've got your exact hand of 5. You're then going to link your White Binder as the link 3 and your Nightmare Griffin as the link 1 Fiend monster that you're going to need to get you into the brand new ABRQ, the Lightless Shadow. Now at this point here, you've got a couple of different options depending on how you'd want to do it, but mainly what you're going to want to do to get you that lock into the point is you're going to use the card you just drew to discard this card, and then you're going to be able to revive the Nightmare Griffin in the center zone and banish the Yugioh until the end phase. You've still got 4 more cards in hand, so keep that in mind, because what's going to happen now is in the end phase, your Yugioh is going to come back to the board, and you have got the lock of your Griffin inactive already as. Now what you're going to be able to do is during your opponent's turn, what you need to remember is you've got the Yugioh's effect again to go. So you can use the effect of the Yugioh. This will allow you to bring back the IP Masquerena, banishing this and discarding 1 more card. So that gets your IP back into rotation. You've then got your GWC06, which will allow you to revive your White Binder. This will then allow you to use White Binder's effect, and this is when you're going to start being able to banish more cards. So you can banish stuff like Red Ransom. You can also banish stuff like your Maliss White Rabbit. Now, keeping in mind, what you need to do is you need to make sure that whatever monster you bring back to use the effect, whether you want to bring back the White Rabbit directly, or if you just banish the Red Ransom, you kind of want to make sure you leave a zone free. So what you do is you bring back the Red Ransom here, so you've got a monster ready to go, and then you can bring back the White Rabbit. Now, we've got the keeping in mind, we've got the TB11 still banished. What you're going to do here is you're going to be able to resolve the White Rabbit's effect. This will allow you to set your final trap card, being the MTP07. So this is your non-target banish, which is great. And then what you also have with this board built up, because Griffin is pointing to IP Masquerena, is you can use IP Masquerena's effect, and it has a couple of different options. You can either link directly itself and then White Rabbit, or itself and Red Ransom to get you into an SP Little Knight. Or, because you've got 3 Maliss monsters on the board, you can use IP Masquerena plus a White Binder or a Red Ransom and a White Rabbit. So you'd probably want to go IP, White Rabbit, and White Binder. And you're probably going to want to put all of these into a Heart's Crypta. Now what you do is you need to make sure that Heart's Crypta is pointing to a card, so as long as it points to Griffin, it's technically linked. But obviously if you put it here, you're going to give your opponent a zone, so you probably want to make sure you put it here, and then kind of go from there. So what you've now got is you've got the Heart's Crypta's ability that can use the effect to put back your TP11. This will then now non-target banish one of your opponent's cards, because you'll use this to do that. Banishing either your Red Ransom, or of course you could banish your Crypta after the fact. So you'd banish one off the Heart's Crypta. You can then use this to banish the Heart's Crypta. Then resolve the NTP7, which will allow you to add a Maliss. So you're going to add a starter again. So you're going to go straight for a Dormouse. Then non-target banish a second card on the board. And then you'll be able to resolve your Heart's Crypta, bring it back to the board, and now this is going to be 5k. So you've non-target banished 2, one off of Heart's Crypta, one off the MTP7. Your opponent's special summon monsters cannot activate their effects, very, very important. And then on top of that as well, you've also been able to banish from the graveyard off of the back of White Binder, and you've also been able to still have 4 cards in hand in total. 1 starter to go again, and then 3 more hand traps that will provide you with even more disruption. And should it all survive, obviously your Yugioh can come back, and your Yugioh can then use the effect to discard a card to destroy a card, and this should be more than enough for game. So that's just kind of how the combo deviates. It's usually the same as the Terahertz version of the deck, but we've basically subbed out Terahertz plus the 2 targets you would play for Terahertz for IP Masquerena plus the Yugioh and Nightmare Griffin if you weren't playing it already. And then it just kind of gives you a nice little edge that a lot of people... Like sometimes, rather than just that spell or trap negate, having the Griffin lock can actually be really, really damaging for your opponent and very tricky for them to kind of out. It does put a target on the Griffin's back, but then you're still backing out with the Yugioh as well, and you still have the GWC, so you still have ways of being able to loop it around and get you the outcome that you want. Anyway, that is it for the entire profile and combo. I hope you have found this informative and it's given you as much information as possible and a breakdown on the deck to see how it can be competitively viable. Any questions at all, by all means, please put in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them as always. But for now, stay safe and, of course, happy dueling.